All right, well, I think we'll just go ahead and get started here. Hopefully, we get a few more people popping in Zoom. But let me start with, as you know, our competition this month is square crop images. In the November newsletter, it has some information, a couple articles, and video tutorials because square crop is a little bit different compositionally. The constraints are a little bit different, and also the interesting thing that I read was, a number of people talked about with a square image, your eye kind of goes in a circle around it. Instead of going from left to right or up to down, it just kind of rotates around a circle. And a square crop, is perfect for something where you have your main subject dead center too. So there's some interesting information there, and I'm hoping to see a whole bunch of really interesting square crop images. I've gotten a few already for some folks who may not be in town at the time. And our judge is going to be Jeff Johnson. He was scheduled earlier this year and had some medical difficulties, and he's passed all that. So we'll be glad to have him back. He's one of our favorites and an excellent judge. I will also mention that competition meeting is Zoom only. As I put in the newsletter, and it's also on the website, there's a scheduling conflict with the city council. They're occupying all the meeting rooms that evening, so we're gonna have to do Zoom only. And the last thing I'll mention is the email I sent the other day about people volunteering to be, president, treasurer, membership, somebody to take Bill's place for next year. I unfortunately have gotten absolutely zero response on that. And I will just say that I will urge everybody to think about that. And if you can fill one of those positions, we'd love to have you as part of the team that keeps the club running. Obviously, if nobody volunteers, then we've got empty positions, and that's going to be bad for the club. Um, we don't want to rely on somebody taking two or three or four positions on, as I have done this year. I really don't want to do that again. So please think about if any of those positions appeal to you, that you would be able to commit a couple hours a month to help run the club. Get in touch with me, send me an email, and let's get those things taken care of and covered so that the club continues to thrive for the next year. I see on Zoom that we have two guests this evening, Ben and John. John is coming back. He was in our last meeting. Welcome back, sir. Ben, if you would unmute and just give us a little bit about how you found us, the type of photography you do, and those kind of things.
Hi guys. So my name is Ben Hernandez, and I found you guys through the website. So I recently visited a friend in Olympia, Washington, and he was telling me about his wonderful camera club in Olympia. And I said, I bet that we have one better in Denver. So I started researching, and I found you guys. The photography that I do, it's I was listening to a podcast not too long ago, and I can't remember the name of the guy who said this, but he said, everyone wants me to go ahead and have a definition for the photography that I do. And ultimately, I am going to say that I do travel photography because travel photography encompasses absolutely everything. So landscapes, portraiture, street. So I do travel photography. I just enjoy having a camera in my hand. And I decided not too long ago to start going ahead and being a little bit more involved with the community and learning and hearing what I could be doing better, or just sharing, or things like that. So anyway, that's me in a nutshell. Sorry, it was long-winded.
Oh, no, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you. I'm glad that you don't find yourself pigeonholed into one particular genre and that you spread your wings and basically shoot whatever you want. And that's a good thing. I hope you find our club interesting. We do have a number of resources, whether it's recorded past meetings. We do have a mentoring program also. If you join in, you can connect with other photographers in the group with lots of experience. We do photo shoots whenever we can. We because we have meetings on the second and fourth Wednesday. There are a few months with the fifth Wednesday. We take those opportunities to go and do something. We've done a couple of shoots this year that have been very good. We've got good participations. Hopefully, hopefully we're the club for you, and we are better than that place in Washington.
Well, yeah, I'm excited and ready to prove him that we have better clubs here in Denver.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben, for joining us. And John, did you want to say a word or two before we get jumping in here? Or again, I'm just glad to see you again.
Well, thanks for letting me listen in again. I'm just very interested in, learning more about photography and the club's effort to promote that. So, looking forward to it.
Very good. All right, and thanks again for joining us. All right, David or Terry, which of you is taking the reins here this evening?
David is.
Very good, sir. Well, unless there's any questions or comments, it's off to you.
Okay, thanks, Carl. Actually, before I introduce Steve, I just wanted to mention that the competition meeting is on Tuesday, not Wednesday. So this is the one that's all virtual. So just make sure you get the right day. Otherwise, you'll have a dark screen. Great. Well, tonight for the ultimate 2023 presentation, Steve Wilton has graciously offered to present on what he calls the road to finding a niche and a personal style. Many of us know Steve, from the club. He joined the club in 2021, and for Steve, this presentation is about his personal story that chronicles the past 2 years when he resurrected a decades-dormant photo hobby in the midst of the COVID pandemic. Working exclusively in monochrome, in other words, it's an off-color presentation. Steve created various photographic projects for himself to pursue. With the subject matter dictated by the project design, Steve has been able to concentrate on technique, composition, and elaborating a theme or a story. Steve feels that this approach to photography was quite beneficial for him in evolving his skills, and he proposes that it might be helpful for other club members as well, who may find themselves struggling to find a suitable photographic topic or wrestling with specific skills. Steve's presentation is going to be divided into 2 parts, and there will be a break in the middle. He asked that you hold your questions until the end of each part of the presentation. But I think, since I got a sneak preview of it last week when we did a dry run, I think you'll find it very interesting and very thought-provoking in terms of how each of us really goes about taking pictures and thinking about how we take pictures. Steve, I'll pass it over to you if you want to fire up the presentation and then share it. That would be great.
Great, thank you, Dave. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, well, I'll get started here. Thanks very much. This is fun for me. This has been my mantra for maybe 20 or 30 years, and that is whatever work that I'm doing, I try to imagine as I go along, as I'm learning something about the work, what would I do if, how would I teach it? And that really gets you to focus in on your work and the processes and the thinking that goes on. You begin to sort of a metacognition about yourself and what you're doing. So I've always applied that. So there's nothing new for me, and I applied it to photography. So then there's a 2-part presentation, about 30 minutes each. About midway, we'll have a break and a Q&A. So it's the road to finding a niche and a personal style. And part 1, we'll get started with the road to finding a niche or niche. I'm going to call it niches, whatever. And finding that road as you're going along, discovering stories along the way. Now, this is important. It's not about me or what I've done, the niche or the style of the photos. It's really about the process you can focus on the process that I applied. It's a bit geeky, it's a bit nerdy, but it really helped me. And maybe there can be something to be gained by looking at your own work and treating it in a similar fashion. So here was my dilemma. This was about 2.5 years ago. It was my choice here, and I decided to opt for taking up a hobby that requires deep skill building. Be much healthier than drinking beer and watching Netflix. So in 2021, I resurrected this decades-old photography hobby. I hadn't really gotten into photography in any serious way since I was in Vietnam back in the late 60s, early 70s. So I resolved to find a personal photographic direction. I just wasn't going to take pictures. And I wanted to really get a sense of where I was going with this. And above all, I wanted to have fun. I mean, it was the pandemic and there wasn't much fun going on then. So it served that purpose. So I see myself as an old man in a hurry. And I gave myself 2 years to figure it out. So by 2023 in January, February, that's the period we're talking about from the beginning there. There's 2 years. So like everybody, I guess, you start shooting everything here and there, you know, and anything that caught my eye. And I quickly learned after showing some of my photos to other people that I can't do color. I'm moderately colorblind. So I learned to see in black and white. And that was a trick in and of itself, the way you look at the world in black and white and not be distracted by color. So in time, as I was taking, as months went by, various images coalesced inside Lightroom. I guess we use Lightroom throughout. And from those photos, I began to discover an emergence, as if the prior images were directing me what to shoot next. So moving on, when I got going in this, I started actually about the time I got into this project, about a month later, I joined Focus Camera Club. And Dave Hull was a great help as I got started with that. It gave me some confidence with emails back and forth. Anyway, the judges and the mentors certainly advanced what I was doing. I learned so much from the club and still do every time. But as I got going, I wanted to go beyond what I call standalone image fixation, and think about telling stories through multiple images. When I take a picture, think of how other pictures could enhance that. So I intentionally started shooting story projects. And while I was doing that, I knew that I was going to experiment with various niches. You know, you're looking at YouTube, learning as much as I can. So I love this quote by Mike Brown. He's got a YouTube channel and he's a educator, photography teacher out of the UK. I entered one of his contests, got an honorable mention on something anyway. But I love his quote. It says, you take pictures about something, not of something. So the about something is wherein lies the story. Now, a really good friend of mine, a person I really respect, is a seasoned artist, told me that photos should tell a story or at least evoke an emotional feeling in the viewer. Great photographs. Now, that's very hard to do unless you're shooting animals or award-winning landscapes and the like. I found it very difficult. So along the way, you know, taking the random images, you will hit upon a good one that tells a story on its own. But it is, as I say, a rare occurrence. I entered this at the Paris Street Photographers Awards and got an honorable mention for it, by the way. Hard-earned break. So these are the things as I was going along. I started to write down what it is that I was looking for, what I liked, what appealed to me. And also what would set up some boundaries as to where I go and don't go. So number one, it had to be fun for me, absolute fun for me alone. I had a compressed time frame, old man in a hurry, to develop the skills, and location was very important, the ease of year-round access, and the opportunity to find many diverse subject opportunities within that location. On the emotional side, you have story, personality, and a chance to find humor. So I pursued right off early on, I pursued a children's books for my grandkids who were also in lockdown called Creatures Hiding in the Woods. So I went into the woods and you'll see some examples. So I printed it as a children's book, one of those cheap printing things, you know, a shuttle, whatever that's called. So I'd shoot different things in the woods and they would have to identify not what they were. There wasn't a right answer. What did it make them think of? What did they see when they looked at this? And I had about 24 photos like this, and it was fun, but it was esoteric, and there were really no opportunities for humor. So again, I moved on. This was rather recently a project story on construction, but it has very limited opportunities for humor. It was pretty serious stuff. So in doing all of this, I wanted to go explore these 7 niches. There's others, but these are what I explored. And my definition of a niche is a world, it's a place, or an expansive subject. That's just to hack that together. That's me. So here are the 7 niches. Let's go through them. The first I went was industrial. I was living down in Denver at the time. I'm living in Longmont now. But this was all around, mostly Commerce City area. And it was really cool. I like doing this. You're constantly getting run off the property by the security guards. But at any rate, the geometry, shooting in black and white was great. These, what I call alien shapes. But it really was tough to find a personality in these pictures. And interestingly, I love diagonal lines, but you have very few opportunities for diagonal lines when you really get into the industrial stuff. Landscapes and outcroppings. Tried to kill myself a few times climbing around rocks outside of Boulder Canyon, and about 3 other canyons in that area. And I got to know some landscape photographer, and man, it would just take me too much time and effort to become really good at this. So I passed on it. And it's tough to find humorous elements, as I say, unless you're using props. Woodland, same thing. Too much time and effort. Same situation. Architecture. I like the little slices of architecture, like the awning to the right. They were kind of fun. And then downtown Denver, I was going to do a series on streetlights with the buildings in the background. This is one example, but it's just, it would take too much time for me to get really good at it, and it'd probably hit a wall after a while, so to speak. It's because it's tough to find a story in these photos other than portraying a city or a building or a Rockefeller Center or something like that. So January 2023, my 2 years were up. I'm a disciplined guy, so I took my top favorite shots, and I eliminated the niches. I eliminated those that were not fun for me. I had this in an earlier slide. Ones where I had the least amount of skill and not enough time to really improve it. Environments that are tough to shoot and lack year-round access. And the subject lacks personality. I got to get rid of those. So, and there were no opportunities to find humor or oddities in some of these things, because I'm attracted to that. I'm really attracted to the unusual. And there was no expansive storytelling potential. So given that, what I eliminated, I was left with 3 niches. The first one, or the third choice, was farms and agriculture. This was important to me because I spent a lot of time on farms. I lived in Iowa for 4 years, and I come from Pennsylvania and farmland. So, I had an attachment to it. It was kind of fun. But to me, it wouldn't be fun because you'd be doing a lot of interfacing with the farmer, and who sometimes can be a bit protective about what you shoot and what you don't shoot. The second choice, and I'm gonna do something with this at some time, and that is human transportation, not just cargo transportation, but trains, planes, and automobiles. I really like this because it's you've got the metal, which is great, the shiny metal in black and white. And of course, you've got all these geometric structures, particularly in the airports. So it works well in monochrome. And then you've got the endless variety of humans on the move, and their stress is something everybody can identify with, going through the airport or the train station or the bus station. So I like this one, but I had to put this on the back burner and go with my first choice, which was neighborhood photography. Doesn't sound very exciting, but it was the most fun of the niches for me. There's year-round access, of course, and there's this idea of a sense of place, portraying a sense of place. So in the neighborhood photography, what I do, I was taking about 6 small towns in Colorado, and I just started working each one of them and building up a portfolio around each town. Now, I got to this point, and then I decided, okay, what I should do is, going back to the Richard Feynman quote, I'm going to write a manifesto, my manifesto about photography. So here are the things I'm going to write about. Background, what is the what motivates me to take pictures? Why am I doing this? And what experiences in my past brought me here? The second thing is mindset. When you're out there taking pictures, what's the frame of mind that you're in? The niche, which I talked about, which is a locus or a location primarily, is what I zeroed in on. And then a style radar. What do I look for in the field to give me the kinds of photos that I want to be as part of my identity, I suppose, photography identity. And the end game, what's the output? And then in the field, a sequential guide for shooting, one paragraph, maybe one little long paragraph, something I can print out and put in my wallet, take with me all the time, and just make sure that I check off most of the points. I'm not that crazy, but it was good to write this stuff down. Okay, so here's what the manifesto looks like. The background, I'll have to read these to you because it's small print and all. Steve grew up in a small Pennsylvania river town. Back then, he and his little childhood friends explored the world around them. Long before the exposure to concepts, categories, meaning, and purpose, they saw things as they were, with innocent curiosity, wonder, and awe. Trying to capture that wonder and awe, that's the trick. Okay, so my approach was, and I made a quote out of it. The harder I look, the less I see. But if I empty my mind and become a kid, a playful curiosity presses the shutter for me. If anybody practices meditation, it really helps just to sit down on a bench somewhere when you get to a new location for 10 minutes and try to empty out your mind, apply some meditation techniques, and then proceed from there. About the vision of photography as an approach, Cole Thompson, who I greatly admire, Dave Hull, introduced me to his photography. Here's his definition of vision. The sum of our life experiences. Well, for me, and I'm not Cole Thompson, but I'm at least zeroing in on a vision that emphasizes my experiences from childhood. So in that case, surprise is my most fun friend of all. And that's got to be part of what I do. So I almost never pre-visualize. I don't do what Cole Thompson does. I do sometimes, but I almost never pre-visualize before setting out on a shoot. Kind of like a street photographer. Let the world unfold in front of you. So, and that's where I get my greatest enjoyment. So that indeed, surprise is my most fun friend. Okay, the niche. Steve photographs small town neighborhoods as simple monochromatic slices. Each town reveals its distinctive character through its homes, yards, sidewalks, alleyways, local businesses, market events, vehicles, schools, playgrounds, recreational facilities, construction, parks, and nearby environs. Such character is often obscured in cities and cookie-cutter suburbs. I really love small towns. I grew up in a small town, and that's where my focus is. Now we're going to skip the style radar. That's part 2. But what's the end game? Well, I want to tell short stories or convey a feeling about a subject or a place. And I think in print, I did some work when I was in the service in graphic arts. And so I broke it down into 3 things, 3 vehicles: triptychs, 3 pictures in 1 frame, multi-photo grid posters. I'll give you an example. Books and zines. It could be e-zines. But I want to, throughout, portray a consistent personality. And my market is to sell to the general public. That's good enough for me. In the field, as I mentioned, that stuff isn't ready for prime time to show anybody at this point. It will be soon. So here's 7 triptych examples from neighborhood photography. Okay, playgrounds, parks, businesses, farmers markets, rooftops. These are playgrounds. The little girl on the left, she was I was her nanny throughout the pandemic as I lived at my son's house. So I went to a lot of playgrounds. And these are some of the pictures. I've got about maybe a dozen or 16 good ones. So that was one subject from the neighborhood niche. Parks and recreations, this is from Longmont, the Golden Ponds. If anybody's familiar with that park, it's a great park. And you can see the two of the people are wearing masks. One is a statue. Somebody put a mask on that guy. I didn't. The fisherman, and the guy with his dogs wearing a mask. It was the three fishermen there. They didn't have masks on, but of course, you know, you really have to when you're out in the walking out in nature. Then I got a kick out of this. There was a baseball field nearby my son's house where I was living, and I called it pandemic baseball. Some people had the courage to put together a few games, and they had some spectators, but it was the pandemic and it was baseball, so there's very few people paying much attention to what's going on here. And I found that amusing. Another triptychs. I love downtown businesses in small towns. There's lots of opportunities for shots. You not only have the people, but you got the businesses, and each business has a little personality of its own. Bob's Diner on the right in Louisville. I became a regular customer there because I've been to town so many times taking pictures. Double Happy is a Chinese restaurant. That woman is not posing for me. That's just the way she was. She came outside of the restaurant looking up at the sign. She's looking double happy. And the Punch Buggy shaved ice stand has a sign there. And I thought how unusual that the street light next to it looks like somebody punched it. Farmers markets were great. So I did a lot of those, Longmont, Louisville, Erie, other places. And I focused on hands. So my triptychs, my collection of farmers markets are all about hands. Then rooftops, I love rooftops. These are from Louisville. I have two of these, two triptychs to show. The one in the upper left got honorable mention in several international contests, minimalism and black and white awards. And so this is Louisville, and this is Louisville and Arvada. I haven't shown the one on the right to anybody, the one from Arvada. That's a lot of blank space up there, empty space, but it kind of works, or at least it works for me. The other two are from Louisville. So tell stories or convey a feeling about a subject or place. Okay, so I've shown you the triptychs. Now let's take a look at what I call a multi-photo grid poster. And the example I'm going to show you is called 2 a.m. lockdown. Night lights, moonlight, street lights. I got up at 2 in the morning. You know, it's lockdown. What are you going to do? So you have to entertain yourself. So I got up at 2 in the morning with my cell phone, and before I got my Fujifilm. And so I got my cell phone on a tripod, and I went around the house at that time just taking photos, with the only light being those three lights. And take a moment to look at this. So I moved from the bathroom, looking out the window, 2 a.m., that's the moon out there. And then the shadows of the plants in the windows and the shades, you know, coming through from the street lamps outside made these crazy shadows on the wall, which I really liked. Okay, so that was my 2 a.m. lockdown. Maybe you get a sense of that when you wake up early in the morning, you walk around the house, you kind of get that feeling. There's a feeling to this, I think. It is for me. Now, I'm going to show you an example of a 9-photo story. Now, there would be many more photos than this in this particular story. In fact, there are, because I'm doing this. It probably has almost 18 or 24, excuse me. But anyhow, I'm going to show you this example, and it's a condensed example of a sequential 9-photo story. And it would be, imagine looking at it at a photo book or a zine, you're seeing it one photo at a time. And I'm using what I call the reveal technique. Hollywood does this a lot. It's tough to do in literature, but people do it. And so let's go through this. In the first photos I'm going to show you, the question is, hey, what is that? I don't know what that is. Then the second 3 photos, you're going to say, well, maybe I know what that is now. And the last 3 photos for the reveal, okay, that's what it is. That's what's revealed. So let's go through these. The first 3 photos of the 9. What is that? Okay, is that sand dunes at night? I don't know what that is necessarily. I don't get it. And let's take a look at the next one. Well, what is that? Is that outer space? Some planet outside the solar system? What is that? And here's a rock in the middle of the similar settings. So what is that? All right, now here they are as a triptych. Now the second three photos allow you to make the statement, oh, I think I know what that is. Okay, maybe I know what that is that's being shown in this photo book. Okay, now I do think I know what this is. Yeah, I've got a pretty good idea what this is, not sure yet. And then the third set of three photos ask the question, well, okay, that's what it is. Here's the triptych. As we move on to the next three photos, you're going to say, okay, that's what it is for sure. Okay, I get what's going on now. I know what this is. And now there, I see what that is. This is a skate park. This is all about the skate park. Another shot. Definitely the skate park. That's what it is. Okay. And there they are as a triptych. And the design of these skate parks are amazing. One of them, I think the one in Arvada is considered one of the top 10 in the country. And they were designed by Team Payne out of Florida and another design group called Urban Farmer. I'm just fascinated by this stuff. Okay, so that's the conclusion of part one. Now I'm going to show you, we're going to start part two, and then we're going to go for some Q&A, okay? Because I want this to move along quickly. So that was part one, finding a niche and discovering stories along the way. Now we're going into part two, just the first few slides, and then I'll stop. The road to finding a personal style. So I wanted to cultivate an unusual style, whatever that is. Finding unusual photo and story opportunities in a small town. Unusual is the key word here. So I have to ask myself of every shot that I take, or what makes this shot unusual? And if it's not unusual, get rid of it. And the challenge here is to discover, I call it a style radar or radar that scans for the unusual. So this is going on inside my head as I go out there. And I love this quote by John Barkley. He's a partner with Cole Thompson. They have a podcast together now. And I love this quote. He says, make the pictures only you can see. And I really abide by that. I just love that quote. Eventually, I settled upon these 6 photo situations. All right, and we're going to go through these one at a time. Juxtapositions, blind spots, Easter eggs, the uncommon common, oddities, and humor. Okay, now here's what it looks like in the manifesto. So I put these in here. Style radar, find the unusual. Juxtaposition, blind spots, Easter eggs, the uncommon common, oddities, and humor. See, I'm writing this stuff down as I go. And I've rewritten this a dozen times, this manifesto, as I hone in and refine and try to give myself a better understanding of what it is I'm doing, okay? Now, let's open it up to some Q&A about the process. So I'll field any questions that anybody has.
Steve, when we talked some time ago, I was really struck with your statement that you were looking to find simplicity, out of complexity. And I do think a lot of your photos do that. Not all of them. Some of them are, have a lot of complexity into them. But a lot of them, have a sort of an abstract feeling. Is that part of your manifesto?
No, it's not, because I want to leave that open. I do tend to do that, and I could see taking even more of a minimalist approach to some of this stuff in the future, but I leave that open. I'm glad you reminded me of that, because I am about simplicity, because I'm into not minimalism necessarily, but simplism. And it's easier in a way. I like easy. You know, we say these small towns. I love going to these small towns. It's not just taking pictures. I'll stop at a coffee shop, you know, linger around, maybe talk to some people, uh, go out, take some pictures, uh, get an early lunch, take some more pictures, go to an ice cream shop. So it's fun for me. I got to keep it fun, and I enjoy those outings.
I guess, you know, one critique you could have of the manifesto is that while it's a very disciplined approach, and that can be very instructive and constructive, both, is it also limiting or confining?
Yes,
Have you
it
felt-
is. Yes, it is. But knowing myself, I need that.
Okay,
It's just I go all over the place. I'm too undisciplined, and I needed something to get focused on. Now, as time goes on, I can expand more, and as I do, so will the manifesto. But writing it down, going back to the Richard Feynman uh, quote, is really important for me. I want to know what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So it could become a big manifesto with lots of options to it, for sure. Ken, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just a general comment, Steve. I'm not a great fan of black and white, but when I see something I like, I like it. And you had a couple pictures in there that it was just s- it took me away. The one in the airport where the woman had a pillow, right? Now, I don't know what you did with that one, but the processing on that pillow is just it's absolutely eye-catching against what's going on in that picture. Um, and then of course the happy the Chinese restaurant.
Yes.
That's priceless. That's $1 million picture, of course, right?
Yeah.
Um,
It just happened. You know, I was at the right
right,
place, the right time, kind of thing.
right. But just as I said, just a comment. I really like that both of those were very well done, and especially whatever you did with that pillow, that's outstanding.
Well, thanks very much. I was taken with my iPhone, and I didn't do much processing, uh, but
It's great.
that was fun to take. You know, and the airports are like downtown New York. I mean,
Yeah.
nobody cares that you're taking pictures. Thanks, Ken. Any other questions?
And Ben, you can just unmute yourself and jump right in.
Cool, thank you. Steve, I appreciate the presentation. Thank you. I do have a question for you. At some point during the presentation, I felt that you were using style and niche interchangeably. Do you feel that they're mutually inclusive, or do you think that you can have your own photographic style regardless of the subject matter?
Yes, what you just said. That's what I believe. My definitions are my definitions, you know. But style is that emerges. So if somebody looks at a photo and say, "Oh, that's Ben's photo or Steve's photo," uh, and yes, it probably could apply to any niche. I agree, and I'll get more into the style. I think that'll come through in the second part of the presentation a lot better.
Okay, Steve, one question I had for you. I know
Yeah.
that you said that you targeted specific small towns. How often do you go back to them? You know, obviously, I'm guessing it's not a one-shot deal where you go there for one day and that's it, that you revisit over a time period. You talked about that a little bit.
Sure, at least a half a dozen times, because the game for me is the surprise. I mean, I'll walk down the same streets, and every time I walk down, I see something, even if it's static, as it's not a person moving or an animal or anything, and even if it's static, because I'm learning, I'm always learning, and I say, oh well, that as I get more experience, I think I can do some stuff in post processing that would make that dull shot look interesting. So I go over and over again, same places. The Littletons, I got 3 shots out of that. Well, I'll probably go back there, maybe 3 or 4 times in the spring to get some more there. I've got a bunch from Golden, Lafayette, Louisville, Longmont, Boulder. Yeah, I just keep, going over and over the same place. And because I enjoy that sense of discovery and surprise.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. Cecilia.
Hi, Steve. I'm really loving and enjoying your photos. And I'm sorry if I missed this, but did you mention if you set your camera to black and white, or do you convert them to black and white? And then also part two of that question is, do you find yourself doing a lot of post-processing or very minimal?
The post-processing is all over the place. As a beginner, I overcooked everything and I processed too much. So I'm doing less processing as time goes on, because you learn, and I was gobbing up my photos. But I shoot a Fujifilm, and they have a JPEG that is called Across, which is a black and white style. So when you shoot in that JPEG, you see it through the viewfinder. You see it in black and white. But I also, at the same time, shoot it in RAW, so that I've got the RAW image plus the JPEG, because I don't use the JPEGs. So when I then download them to my computer, I get rid of the JPEGs and keep the RAWs. And then I go in and work with them, because I do like to start with them a bit in color, as you're developing the black and white and understanding what that's about, and then doing the conversion to black and white, knowing that the various colors, for instance, yellow can be a very strong white element in black and white. Yeah, so that's how I work. I when I'm out there, I see through the viewfinder. I see it, and on the back screen, I see it in black and white.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
Steve, would you clarify, and I forget exactly what category it was under, but you said that you were shooting for the general public.
Right.
I'd like to know what you mean by that, versus, I love that you're shooting for fun, because that's sort of where I am as an older guy, is that this is sort of a way to keep alive, and fun and surprise is a great thing to add to your life. But are you also shooting for other people?
The reason I chose the general public is that it's less intimidating. I used to shoot for the judges. Now I don't do that anymore. Not that I've learned so much from the judges. I don't want to diminish that in any way, but and so I'm not shooting for other photographers. Actually, I'm shooting for myself, and that hopefully would translate to something that the general public would appreciate. Just the general public. Not artists necessarily, but they could appreciate it too. And that's why I do it. Here's that quote again. And do you want to take a break, 5 minutes?
I don't know that we necessarily need to. Like you said, if you got maybe a half hour left, I personally think that we should just keep on going before all this stuff that you said escapes our brains. We want to keep it all in there and keep going with it. So
Okay.
if that's okay with everybody. I think we'll just march on.
All right. So here we go. Okay. So the style radar. First, we're going to look at each of these 6 photo opportunities. I'm looking for the unusual here, and I think if I look for these various opportunities, I'll get that. So number 1 is juxtaposition. So I get carried away, overthink stuff. So I've gotten this into categories. At any rate, we'll take a look at it. Juxtapositions. It can be a contrasting juxtaposition, complementary, or an ironic relationship. Okay, and that's what a juxtaposition is, a relationship. Now, I've used this quote here on the left from the Professional Photographers of America, 12 Elements of Merit Photography. We've probably all seen this. I had a printout. I don't know if the club mentioned it, and put it up on the wall. And the 12 elements of a good photograph. Number 8 was interesting. This is where an image creator wants a viewer's attention focused. There may be primary and secondary centers of interest, but sometimes all the elements in the image work together to create the center of interest. Now I'm going to take that on a bit and expand upon it. Now looking at this photo above here, there's 2 subjects, the sunflower and the skull. All right. Sometimes I maintain that the subject is the juxtaposition itself, so that the subject is both of them. And therefore you could emphasize them equally sometimes. And this is called, and I thought I was a bit of heresy here, but anyway, I ran across this video from B&H Photos, the visual flow presentation by Ian Plant. And Ian Plant apparently shoots with Cole Thompson again. And it's a fascinating video. It's called Visual. He talks about, the name of it is Visual Flow. And after about half an hour, he gets into something called visual counterpoint. Okay. So he wants to establish in some photos a visual counterpoint, a tug of war to engage the viewer longer. To me, that's a really interesting concept. Now, here's another approach to that. This guy, James Pops, he's a landscape or woodland photography guy. Anyway, he's pretty interesting on YouTube. And he refers to your juxtaposition. Whenever you're shooting a subject, you should have a supporting actor to accentuate the story of your lead actor, which is the subject. And that was an interesting way to look at it, I thought, with juxtapositions. You got your main actor, and then you have this supporting actor that indeed advances the story. Now, let's look at the 3 different juxtapositions as I categorize them. Let's look at this. Juxtaposition, a contrasting relationship. So here we have a contrasting relationship. We have these guns of war and a young girl looking through the barrel. This is in Corregidor, off the right off the Bay of Manila. These photos are 50 years old. Now, let's take a look at it. The contrasting relationship. You've got the girl and the gun. With the girl, what's the contrasting? She represents life. She's warm, she's a human being. She's soft texture. The gun is death. It's cold and has a very hard texture. So those are contrasting relationships. This one I entered a couple of weeks ago. And here you've got a contrasting relationship of the uninhibited youth versus the reserved adults listening to music. Another contrasting relationships. This is from Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. I spent about 10 days twice a year there with my in-laws. And this is family dining. If you look at the sign on the upper left, pub and grill, and then you've got adult drinking on the lower right. So that to me was a contrast. And I love the design of those signs, the fat cats in particular. Here's a contrasting relationship, a factory and a sofa. Factory, it's a workplace, it's harsh. Sofa, it's a resting place, it's comfortable. Contrasting relationship, you get what this is. I call them sentries. A bit of humor here. This is the entrance to Lindau. It's in Lindau am Bodensee. It's a little town on the Lake Constance in Germany. Arvada, like the morning after here. Some guy or somebody, man or woman, left a drink, empty drink, on top of a little shed outside a bar, and there happened to be a church in the background, so I saw a juxtaposition opportunity there. Saints and sinners. Sometimes the contrasting relationship can be a pattern that's interrupted, as with this situation here. Wavy road and radio waves. Let's look at complementary juxtapositions, or there's a complementary relationship. Here we've got, I call this guardians. All right, this is somebody's front porch. So you've got the feline family here, and that's the complementary part. You got a cat on the there, and you've got a lion down below. And the cat is the exterminator, and the lion is the protector. So they're complementary. They're both in the same family, literally. This is from Louisville. It's complementary because what struck me here was the street lamp. That's a real street lamp in Louisville against a mural by Baranowski and Carlson. It's for the library in Louisville. And what struck me was the street lamp complemented by the two ceiling lamps in the mural, ceiling lights. This was taken at the Boulder County Fair, a month or two ago. And these are separate rides, but they're very similar. And I wanted to be separate. My approach at that fair was to show two rides at once to get some kind of relationship. And this is what I would call a complementary relationship, because that ride on the right is just a big single loop, whereas the other one are these, I don't know what you'd call them, sort of pistons that go back and forth, or pendulums. And this is ideal. I'm looking for three elements, you know, primary, secondary, and and of course a background. Now, sometimes the background itself is the juxtaposing element. And I've got three examples of that. I've got a little project built around that, and it's called invasive species. So we have technology against nature. The background is the other element. You've got a cement plant outside of Lyons, Colorado, against the foothills here, this ridge. So invasive species, us. Technology versus nature. And here again, technology versus nature. You're contrasted with nature. Here they are as a triptych, invasive species. I've got about 12 of these that I could make a little poster from at some point. And whether I make these posters at the end game, whether I do it or not is not material. It's a way of disciplining me when I'm out in the field and when I'm organizing my stuff and editing to think about my photos. So sometimes you've got a contrasting and complementary relationship. All right. So here we have look at this picture again. We've got the sunflower versus the skull. What's contrasting is the sunflower is alive, the skull is dead. The sunflower is soft texture, the skull is a hard texture. That's the contrasting. The complementary elements are two flowers versus two eyes with the skull, two round shapes with the flowers, and two oval shapes with the skull. So I'm blending them together. I know this is a bit nerdy, but it's how I play with this stuff. Now, situational irony. This is it's pretty tough to find a photo like this, but I've got one again from Corregidor outside the Bay of Manila. By the way, that's where MacArthur said, "I shall return," and he rehearsed it, so he had it on film. The cross and the gun. 50-year-old photo. So the cross, the ironic aspect of this is that the cross is about saving. The gun is about killing. The cross is nonviolent, and the gun, the irony here is, well, what about inquisitions? Peace under the cross. Well, what about the crusades under the gun? See that bit of irony there? Blind spots. Everything I'm going to show you with a blind spot is shot with a selfie stick and an iPhone. And that's how you find the blind spots, things you normally don't see. You got to get down and get them. So we all know what these things are. They're inexpensive. I mean, you can get a good selfie for, $30, $35. And it's got a remote on the handle that you just press the button, and the Bluetooth pushes the shutter. Here's a top-down view. This is in Lafayette, walking along. I used to have a Beetle, had two Beetles, but I never saw one from this angle. And I thought, well, I'll try it this way. Something unusual, an unusual angle. Got down real low for this, down low and up close. This is from our outing, the club's outing at the Railroad Museum outside of Golden. Down low and up close. bottom up view, the child's eye view, if you will. I got an honorable mention with this from the guy that I had shown earlier from the UK, where you've got to take pictures about something, not of something. So it was creative use of an iPhone, so I got an honorable mention on that. And I have to put dishwasher down there because most people, will go a long time not knowing what it is. Underneath, the child's eye view. We all remember as we're kids, we always, underneath the dining room table was, we would make it into a fort, it was a way to escape and have your own little world down there. Well, this is what it looks like at 2 a.m. in the morning. Now, beyond your reach, this fire escape had a platform that was about, I don't know, 8 feet above me from the sidewalk. And it had the platform, I wanted to shoot I wanted to get this shot, but the platform was in the way. So with the selfie stick, I moved the phone up there, took the picture this way. It took a lot of pictures. You can't really zero in on this. And then you pick one that works. So beyond your reach, these blind spots. And this blind spot I also did at the National Railroad Museum in Golden, and the old spray and pray with a selfie stick. There was this one, these old trains, a bunch of us were there, and this was an opening between them, but you couldn't walk in there, you couldn't look in there. It was just only a matter of about, I don't know, 2 feet or so. So I put my cell phone on the selfie, sent it in there, and just took a picture to see what I got. I have several other shots, but I like this one because it reminds me of some sort of dungeon. I mean, there's even a diagonal there on the left that gives it a little compositional interest. So we've done those two. Now we're going to get into something called Easter eggs. If you play video games, you know what I'm talking about. Now, Man Ray has this simple quote: "It is the subject that determines the interest of the photograph." I love this. I overlook this so often. This is fundamental. And I always remind myself of it. Now, that's true, but Easter eggs are a way to reward the viewer for lingering on your photo. So look beyond the subject to unearth a surprise discovery that in some cases advances the photo story. And that's the best kind, if it advances the photo story. So it's beyond the subject, it's off in the corner somewhere, but it's a surprise of sorts. As I say, it's from the world of video games, and generally Easter eggs are hidden and uncovered for their own sake in a video game. Now, this little girl is on an Easter egg hunt, and as we see there, she found an egg in her left hand, and that's a real Easter egg. It's plastic, of course. But there's another Easter egg there that tells a story. It's the photographer's Easter egg, the egg she missed. She walked by that egg, so that's good to have that back there to, turn around, you missed one. Engages the viewer. We all know about this photo, okay? Cartier-Bresson's, the decisive moment. Now, there's an Easter egg here. And it's unnoticed on first glance. As I say, Easter eggs can be in the background or at the edge. And there's a sense of discovery and surprise, particularly with this photo. And I like to call it the aha, there's Waldo moment, if you've ever seen the Where's Waldo books for kids. And it can be a reflection or a juxtaposition, as I say. It can be intentional, subconscious, or just chance. Ted Forbes, the guy, the art of photography guy, he's got a YouTube channel, but he's also well known as an educator for photography. Ted Forbes said he never saw it for years. And I made this slideshow a couple months ago, and I was really surprised last week when Mark Osler made reference to it as well. And about the Easter egg, and he didn't call it that, but the Easter egg in this photograph, and most of you probably know this, but there it is. There's a poster in the background of a jumping circus performer because the circus is coming to town, the Royalowski service or circus. And it's a poster like those repeating posters. So there you see it. That's the Easter egg. But there's another Easter egg. And the fact that it's a repeating pattern of that poster itself, just like the man is being repeated by the water reflection of him jumping. And you take it to another level. Down here is a complete reflection of the poster in the water. Again, I'm overthinking this stuff. I'm overanalyzing it. But I think it's fun to do these things. Now, Easter eggs, I showed you this picture before. I never noticed this until about a year ago. I looked at this shot. It's an old shot. You know, you get tired of looking at your old stuff. Cleaned it up in Photoshop. And I noticed an Easter egg in this shot that I had never noticed before. It's unintentional, discovered in post-processing, as I say. That's the reflection on the shell. That's a giant cannon shell there that looks like a cross. Easter eggs, again, Louisville, unintentional, and I discovered it in post-processing. This little boy's looking longingly at those boba drinks in the window there, walking down the street. But there's an Easter egg inside that, and that's I increased the shadows a bit, and by God, out popped this woman talking to another woman in the shop, in the boba shop, and there is a reflection of the street lamp, which is a similar shape to the boba drinks. Again, overthinking, but I have fun with it. Now, this is intentional, okay? It's part of what I have a series called Peekaboo. But at any rate, I was intrigued by this shot. And there's an Easter egg which changed because it was my main focus subject. And something happened that made me change it around. So the main subject there is that you look through the door. This is the Gold Hill General Store. Gold Hill is a town outside of Boulder. Definitive, old-time, hippie, Colorado mountain town. No, all the roads are dirt roads. And I can't be more than a few hundred people there. And they have this great general store there. So I took some pictures of that. Part of my small town thing. I've got 12 pictures from Gold Hill. So anyway, here's what I'm looking at. This is intentional. The mountain lion tail there matches the tail of the dog who just walked into the shop. My intention was to capture that poster about warnings of mountain lions because that adds to the character of the town. And then out of nowhere comes this decisive moment dog walking into the general store. Also, through a opening at the general store, I saw this young woman with her hair braided like that. The first thing that came to mind was, that's like a Renaissance. That's somebody would see at a Renaissance fair, you know, Renaissance maiden, I thought. But then I got it's unintentional. So I started looking around as I was processing this and discovered, and I'll show you the whole photo. Up here, I changed the name to Honey Maid because there is a Honey Maid biscuits or whatever Honey Maid is. It's a brand name of some stuff in the store on the shelf. That's a stretch, I know. And you see the Easter eggs here again at the Boulder County Fair. The Easter egg is bare feet. This is one of those things, takes you up high and then drops you for about 2 seconds so that you're zero gravity. There's a megaphone on this side, megaphone on that side, and the megaphone, looking at that, shows you that it's actually a mirrored effect. And this is with the Osaka World's Fair. I was photographing the ceiling, which was all mirrors as these people were filing in. This was unintentional. I wanted to capture these drumsticks and the guy's hands beating the drumsticks, but there's an Easter egg here. It's pretty obvious, which is a drummer's face. The fourth drummer back. Smiles for sale. Now this was intentional. I saw this right away. The other photographer I was with didn't see it, but I took the picture and here's the Easter egg. The pot is smiling as well as the statue. This was at a nursery in Longmont. Okay, the uncommon common. All right, common objects. Now, the uncommon common can be unusual by the way that it's portrayed, or it could be an exaltation, elevation to some sort of high form of that common object. Nightlight shadows. This is the uncommon common, right? The shadow thrown by the nightlight. the toothbrush and the shaver there, simple composition. I love these little instructions. Learning it cold, I call this. This is inside the freezer. This was during the pandemic and the ennui of it all. Carbon dioxide tank. And I call these wounded flowers, you know, these things, these heat, the things, there was a windstorm, about three of them are damaged, or two of them are damaged pretty badly. And there's one other one that's a little bent out of shape from falling over during a windstorm. The uncommon common. And here we have trash cans, of course, decisions, you know, regular trash or recycle, what's it going to be? And this I entered into one of the early competitions, winter hoop. It's very common, a basketball hoop, but what's it look like in the dead of winter after a full season of play in the summer and the spring and the fall preceding it? So there's a story here. I like this particular one. It's a twisty ladder. It's part of the playground series. And what I like about it is the way in which it forms a shadow on the ground at the bottom. Common object given some depth and interest because of the way it was shot. Some HVAC, love HVAC inside buildings. Just look up, you're in a building. This is from a coffee shop. I have several shots like this. Here's another coffee shop HVAC shot. Yeah, just taken with the iPhone. You know, you're sitting there drinking coffee and you look up and see something, take a picture. This one I also entered into the club. The uncommon, common, the water fountain, and the placement of those three elements there, the two dots and the spigot. Another water fountain. This was taken for about one story up, looking down a wall, where there was this rectangular oblong water fountain. Okay, I'm going to move on to oddities. Okay, we're in it an hour and 15 minutes. I got about 10 minutes to go. Oddities, everyday curiosities and chance encounters. Things that strike me as being strange or ironic. I don't know if they do with anybody else, so therefore I say it's esoteric often. Now, titles are usually required here, even if it's a literal description. And what makes this photo, to my mind, is the name that I gave it, the double entendre there, the tear in the poster, and the tear that could be coming out of her eye. This is from Vision Works, a window poster. Speaks for itself. That's really odd to me. And I like the way the arrow at the top points right at the general store. I don't even know if they're in business or not, but it was a RV park in eastern Colorado right off 80. Window dressing, a little bit of humor there. A sandal in a stream. Photo friend of mine looks at this again and again, doesn't even see it. It's almost like an Easter egg, but there it is, sandal stream. Street sweepers in, where is this? Erie? I don't know where it was. But at any rate, one thing you'll notice here with these oddities and things that you show, there's a lot of snapshots here. And there's nothing wrong with snapshots. You know, if the subject's really good, going back to the man photo, Man Ray photo, or quote, there's nothing wrong with snapshots if the subject's strong, to my mind. Free pickup. This is in Netherlands, west of Boulder, up Boulder Canyon. Free pickup. Again, you see where the title helps with this. Western Tilt. It appealed to me. Again, from Netherlands. Now, I took this picture, and I didn't know what this was at first. I figured out they're curtains eventually, and they're tied up like that. Well, why is that? And then I remembered I had a cat one time, or my family had a cat, and cats love to go at curtains, you know, scratch them, tear them, ruin them. So people tie knots often in the curtains, and I think that's almost certain that's what was done here, because this household has cats in it. So that's why it was tied up in a knot like that. This is at my daughter's place in Longmont. It's the biggest moth I'd ever seen. Airmail on her mailbox. There's a rocking chair on the rocks. Again, a snapshot. this happens every now and then where that machine just doesn't work and it keeps, so you get this accordion jam. So I took a picture of it. What the heck? From a cemetery in Longmont. Finger vandals. Rather sad. Lost Not Found, again, a series I've got. I got to find more of these. But anyway, here's some examples within parks usually. This, I did not place this. I didn't touch it, didn't move it or anything. This was in the street. It's a little charm that must have fallen off a little kid's bracelet. Here's another thing. This comes from Lake Geneva in a park. Okay, I'm going to move on to humor now. That's the end of it. We got about 5 minutes left. And I, you know, what's funny to me is may not be funny to you, or what's funny to you won't be funny to me. But so these are at best dad jokes, and you got to put titles on them, just like the oddities, in my opinion. So that's required. And as I said, snapshots are just fine, particularly if the snapshot in your triptych, poster, zine, or whatever helps complete the story or add to the feeling you're trying to convey. Because I'm not shooting standalone photos. I see all my photos as part of a collection of some kind, presented in print. Louisville, the Scratchers. So you need the this little street photography here. You need the title. The Thrill of Nature's Wonder. That's my son at the age of, I don't know, 12, 13, at the Grand Canyon. You know, nature isn't what they're thinking about that age. This is a backyard of a in Lafayette, and that's a rubber bat that the guy nailed up to the top of his shed like a warning. You know, don't come in this yard. Beware of the dog, and look what the dog did to the bat. It might do it to you. Anyway, I see a story there. This is a total spoof, totally esoteric. You know, those Instagram shots people take. Oh, look at this beautiful meal that I had at Chez Thuy or whatever. And they show these wonderful plates. Well, I showed my empty plate when I was full and finished at an Indian restaurant. Arbor Om. Again, the title helps. Meditating frog. Buddha frog. That's a bar. It's a little hard to see that. I could probably do a better job in telling you that that's a bar. But I call this drunk dog, sober dog. The dog's eyes on the left are really droopy, and the guy's much more alert on the right. I showed this at the club. I know it's humorous because people laughed at it. It was the one time I made it down to Lone Tree. And but people didn't know what it was at first. Again, that kind of reveal thing. You go, aha, that's what it is. That's a dog in a car with his head out the window a little bit and the sun slicing the subject. Then you can have a lot of fun with signs. And I do truncating signs, pictures like this. Okay. There's another one. This sign. That's Bad Daddy's Burgers. And they have an awning in front of it. It talks about all the beer, salad, burgers, etc. And the bad was right over the beer. So I truncated, or I cropped in on that to make a joke out of it. This bumper sticker says, the closer you get, the slower I drive. This is out of my window with the iPhone. And you'll notice that somebody already ran into the bumper in the back and destroyed it. In fact, it's gone. So you could think about, okay, maybe the person's got upset reading that sign and decided to hit him anyway. The closer you get, the slower I drive. Also in Longmont, about 6 a.m. in the morning, walking along, here's a fence. There were a lot of keep out signs in this one yard. So you got a wire fence, you got the keep out sign next to it, and then the wooden fence. And then there was a crack in the fence, and through there, by God, there was a bug stop can for spray, getting rid of the bugs. So I saw this as a bug warning. Here's some other humor from signs: no exit. Jean-Paul Sartre was the existentialist philosopher known for that, one of the founders of that thinking. Anyway, what's funny is to me is that he wrote a play called No Exit about people who die and go to hell. And the hell is they're in a room with about 8 other people and they have to be there for eternity. And the famous quote that comes from that play is, hell is other people. And how appropriate when you look at the tombstones. The signs again here. This is Punch Buggy Shaved Ice, a little business in Louisville. And right next to it is a street lamp that looks like somebody punched it. I put this instinctively, I put up this title, Streaming the Stream. And just the absurdity of this business owner who owns this building saying, don't pee here because you're going to be recorded on video. And by God, we're going to send it out over the internet. I don't know what they were thinking, but there it is. There's the satellite dish up there, streaming the stream. And the final humor shot is this at Louisville. They had an exhibit of metal, bronze, aquatic animals, and these are piranha, and they just happened to be on the wall, and right down the wall was the sign for the strollers are parked, to park your stroller with your kids there, and I called it fresh meat. Okay, so that's the style radar. Those are the situations I look for. This was part 2, and we're finished with that and the whole thing. We went over part 1, which was about niches, and the other part 2 is about style. So here's the manifesto all together. And at this point, I'm finished. And do you have any questions?
And I'll kick off by saying that was fantastic. Super impressive. Hopefully, I've got my wheels turning right now thinking about, okay, I need to start up a photo project. I need to whittle it down and specify everything and kind of follow along with what you did. Of course, it took you a certain amount of time to refine it and everything else, but it's very interesting, I think.
Well, thank you, Carl. I really appreciate that. It was fun doing it. It was fun putting this together. And as I said, over the last 20, 25 years, I go back to the Richard Feynman quote. I always, if I'm doing something or I'm learning something new, I'll do a keynote or PowerPoint about it so that I learn it much better as if I were teaching it, whether I teach it or not. It's just a mental exercise to learn something deeply. Yeah, thanks a lot, Carl.
Other questions from the Zoom crew? Men in the room here.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Steve. I'd like to reiterate enough, Carl's words, how awesome this was. Very thought-provoking, and I know my mind last week and again this week, having seen it a second time, just is buzzing about the discipline, the process, and finding my niches. I share the humor one with you for sure, but thank you so much. This was quite excellent.
Thank you. And Ken, thanks for the thumbs up. So I guess that wraps it up, Carl, right?
Unless anybody else wants to heap a bunch of praise on Steve, or if we have no other questions, then yeah, we can call it an evening. And
okay,
yeah,
see you all.
Again, thank you very much, Steve. This was a most impressive presentation. Can't wait to go through it again and take notes and come up with my own little process and everything. But yeah, it's just a lot of the things that you're talking about is just not having a preconceived notion, but having certain things that you're looking for, perhaps, and just going out and experiencing the world and taking a shot that strikes your fancy. It doesn't have to have the grand purpose necessarily, but you talked about snapshots a number of times, and snapshots can inspire you to go back to a place and maybe look at it from a different angle, look at it a different way, and capture something that is a little different maybe. But it was just enlightening and wonderful and enjoyable and funny, and I had a great time.
Okay, well, thank you again.
All right, everybody wave goodbye. Signing off. See you later.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you all for joining us this evening.
Thank you.